Hi everyone, this is Dr. Eric Fields, the psychologist turned weight loss coach. So, in response to my last video, there have been questions in terms of, okay, so your theory is that I am not dealing with unresolved issues, and therefore I'm using this compulsive overeating to basically cope or to avoid or distract from the real issues in my life. And I have this alarm in my mind that keeps annoying me and telling me that I am in survival mode, or at the very least, that it is critical that I address this issue and start doing something about it because life is too short. And I don't want to live the rest of my life unfulfilled. So the questions that have come up are, so how do I figure it out? What if I can't think of anything? What if I'm literally just bewildered as to what it is that's really making me so dissatisfied, or the reason why this alarm bell keeps going off and saying, wake up, you need to do something. And I misinterpret that to say, wake up, you're hungry, you need to physically survive. So the survival that I'm talking about here is more of like, think of it more in the terms of preservation, right? It's more about preserving the quality of our lives. Your life is precious. And there's a whole branch of psychology called existential psychology that talks about how often people's issues and problematic behaviors are related to existential concerns about their existence. And one of the things that all of us human beings have to kind of grapple with is the fact that our lives are finite. They will end one day. And so there is a need to physically survive as long as we can, in terms of making sure we're physically healthy. But then there is also survival in terms of our mental health, which means making sure that we're living our life to our fullest. Now, I certainly do not have the arrogance to sit here and tell you that I figured out the meaning of life. But what I will share with you is my opinion, and that is whether or not you believe in God, or you believe in a higher being, or the universe, or what have you, I truly believe our purpose is to become the best versions of ourselves, so that we start off as this lump of clay with a certain level of potential. Certain people have higher potential than others in different areas of life. But all of us have a hell of a lot of potential, and many of us don't even come close to fulfilling it. So my belief is, however we got here, our life purpose is to become the best version of ourselves. So that if we're not even close to the best version of ourselves, or there's something fundamentally standing in the way of what psychologists call self-actualization, that is basically fulfilling your potential, if that is occurring, then our reaction is just as strong and severe as if our physical needs were being threatened. Because it's like saying, you are ignoring your life's purpose. You are squandering your life. You're squandering your time. Now, I know this, for a lot of you, is going to feel like a sledgehammer to the head. It's pretty deep stuff here, right? But deep stuff is the only stuff that explains why we keep doing the same harmful, detrimental, negative behaviors over and over and over and feel compelled to keep doing them despite so desperately not wanting to do them. It has to be a deep reason. It can't be some surface level reason like, oh, I just have an Oreo cookie addiction, or oh, I just can't stop when I start eating potato chips because I just love potato chips so much, or I love salt or sugar or what have you. Now, food does have addictive qualities to it. There's no doubt about it. But it doesn't explain the extent and the enduring quality of these issues in terms of like how long they go on for so many of us. It's just not enough. It's not powerful enough of an explanation. And so to answer the questions, what you need to do is you need to take time and really sit with yourself. There's an existential therapy experiment, right, that existential therapists will give patients very often. And the experiment is very simple. They're to sit in a room with the lights off, no sound, no distractions whatsoever, and even better if they close their eyes, and they're to sit in this room for at least an hour. And the other directive that's given is to not think about, daily tasks and responsibilities. What you want to do is you want to just clear your mind and just wait for things to come into your mind. And lo and behold, if you do it the right way, things will come to your memory that are unconscious issues that are now being brought into your conscious awareness. Things like, oh wow, I didn't realize I'm really dissatisfied with my job. I knew there were some things I didn't like about it, but I didn't realize just how dissatisfied I was. Or, oh geez, I just realized that my marriage is in much worse shape than I've been thinking. Or I'm super, super worried about my kids because of X, Y, and Z. Or there are memories, traumatic memories that are really still, wearing you down and have you in their grips. So I'm not suggesting that you have to go to this extreme and sit in a dark room for an hour, although it can be very, very telling if you do. But what I am suggesting is at the very least, spending some time with yourself. Go for a walk, something solitary with not too many distractions. Go for a walk, go somewhere like the beach, if you're in the South and the weather is nice, a walk in the woods, a hike, something where you can be by yourself and really have time to think about what areas in your life are you truly dissatisfied with. And what you're going to find is that the problems that you identify are not easily fixed. Think about it. If you're truly unfulfilled at your job, that is not an easy fix. Most of us can't just get a new job tomorrow. We're dependent on it. We have a mortgage or rent. We have mouths to feed. We need to live. We need money for our physical survival. It's not such an easy thing, right, to change. Our marriage, if that's not working out the way that we want it to, that's not an easy fix. That's very difficult. It's not such a simple decision in terms of to stay or to go, especially when kids are involved. If we're single and we really want to find someone, that's not an easy fix. You can't just snap your fingers and find the one, right? And dealing with trauma is absolutely not an easy fix. And so this explains the food addiction, the compulsive overeating, because we as human beings do not like to deal with really big problems that almost seem unsolvable. It's overwhelming for many of us. Now, there are a minority of us that kind of, they jump right in, they're not afraid of any challenge, no matter how big, and that's great for them. But for most of us, we get overwhelmed when the challenge seems really, really big. And so what do? We say, well, I just don't want to think about it. I want to avoid it. And so we bury it and it stays in the back of our minds, which is our subconscious. But it doesn't go away, and that's the problem. When you repress it into your subconscious mind, it has an insidious effect, a worse effect than if you would keep it in your conscious awareness. Because then it starts seeping through in these really problematic behaviors, these types of behaviors that we call self-sabotaging behaviors, the types of behaviors where we can't seem to get a grip on, and we can't understand why. And the reason we can't understand why is because we've buried the reason. We don't want to know about the reason, because if we acknowledge the reason, then we gotta face it, and we don't want to face it. The problems that this is trying to help you cope with are big, but they all have a solution. And so stop wasting time. One of the biggest things that I emphasize is I don't work with people just to help them lose weight. My approach is always a whole person approach. When I was working with people with addictions, I didn't just help them stop compulsively gambling or eliminate drug addictions or alcohol addictions. It's not enough. You have to get to the root of the issues. And so when people complete their work with me, they don't just lose weight, stop using drugs, stop abusing alcohol. No, they transform themselves. So it does take a lot of work, but we're not talking about this huge task that doesn't yield a lot of benefit. Because it's such a big task, it will yield an amazing, life-changing positive for you if you actually decide to be brave enough to address it. You don't want to be on your deathbed with regrets. One of the biggest regrets, I hear all the time, people are always like, well, I want to lose weight because I want to be healthy so, I can be, physically in good shape and hopefully live a long life. Well, living a long life is great. But if it's living a long life of doing the same old, and there's no changes, and it's a long life that's not very fulfilling, does that make a lot of sense? It can't be just about, I want to be physically healthy so I can live longer. It's got to be, I want to be physically healthy so I can live longer, and mentally healthy so I can live each moment to its fullest. So this is what you need to start with. You need to sit down and figure out what the problems are in your life. And they're going to be big ones. They're not going to be easy ones to fix, I assure you. And if they are, then you haven't figured them out. Because I'm telling you right now, if it was a quick fix, you would have fixed it already. There is a reason why you're stuck in this compulsive pattern. It's understandable from this perspective. Lots of people may look at you and say like, oh, that's so crazy that they do that to themselves. or I don't understand like why they keep doing the same unhealthy pattern. And you know what? Without my explanation, it does look kind of crazy. It does look, you know, unbelievable that people would keep harming themselves like this. But with my explanation, it makes a lot of sense why, right? So there's that old saying, don't ever, judge someone until you've walked a mile in their shoes, right? So if someone else had your personality, your psychological makeup with your issues, there's a good chance they'd be doing the same thing. So it's understandable. Don't beat yourself up that you're in this situation, but beat yourself up because you're not facing it and doing something about it. That's what you need to beat yourself up about. Now, if you find that this problem is truly unsolvable, it can still be solvable in a different way. And what we call this is pivoting. So let's say you just can't, for practical reasons, leave this job that's truly unsatisfying and unfulfilling. So you find a new passion so that, okay, you keep going to this job that's unfulfilling, but you know you have this other thing that excites you. And so it makes the job not so bad. So sometimes you might have to create the solution and instead of just getting rid of the problem. And that's another way of dealing with this. I think that's important to mention because some of you may have already identified the problem and have concluded it's just something I can't fix. I can't, leave this marriage because my kids depend on us too much. I can't do it for practical reasons right now. Okay, so then you can find something else that can fulfill you in your life. So either address the problem and start working on fixing it directly, or pivot and find something else that can truly fulfill you so that this problem becomes very minimized in your life. It's like if we have this pie with these different slices, right? And that represents our life, okay? And there's a harmful slice, right? Maybe it's a slice of the pie that's gone bad and spoiled. You ultimately would love to be able to just take it out and refill that spot with some really good tasting, some pie, right? But if you can't do that, then what you can do is add another slice of pie, right? And so that's what I'm talking about here. This is how you start really going about it. And if you feel like you're not equipped to do this on your own, then hire a therapist or hire a coach that's going to really work with you with the psychological aspects. This is Dr. Fields. I know this was a mouthful today, but listen, this is deep stuff that really needs to be addressed. And, it's not the kind of thing that's going to encapsulate a 5-minute strategy, right? It's going to take time. And so that's why I had to spend a lot of time on this today. I hope you found this helpful. Have a wonderful weekend, everyone.